In the summer of 1978, a Soviet helicopter pilot flying low over the western Sayan Mountains saw something through the trees that should not have existed. He was scouting landing zones for a team of geologists. The region beneath him was one of the most isolated stretches of taiga in the Soviet Union, 250 kilometers from the nearest settlement, 6,000 feet up a mountainside. No human being was supposed to be there. As he banked the helicopter over a steep ridge, he saw furrows in the earth, then a clearing, then a small log structure, a garden, a house, in a place where every official Soviet record confirmed that no human being had set foot in living memory. When the geologists hiked up the mountainside to investigate, an old man in patched sacking came out to meet them. His face was streaked with dirt. He spoke a Russian dialect that nobody had heard outside of 17th century texts. Behind him, inside a single log cabin, two terrified women were weeping. The youngest had never seen another human face in her entire life. They were the Lykov family. A father, a mother who had died 17 years earlier, and 4 children raised in absolute isolation. They had walked into the Siberian forest in 1936 to escape Stalin's purges. They had not seen another human being since. They did not know that World War II had happened. They did not know that men had walked on the moon. They did not know what bread was, what wheels were, or what a piece of cellophane felt like. This is the story of how the Lykov family survived 42 years completely alone in one of the most brutal environments on Earth, and what happened the moment civilization finally found them. Before we get to the helicopter, we have to understand what drove this family into the deepest forest in Russia in the first place. Because the Lykovs did not get lost. They ran. And the reason they ran is older than the Soviet Union itself. Fleeing the Red Terror, the Lykov family were Old Believers. The Old Believers are a Russian Orthodox tradition that broke from the official church in the 17th century, when Patriarch Nikon introduced reforms that aligned Russian liturgy more closely with Greek Orthodox practice. The Old Believers refused. They considered the reforms heretical. For 250 years afterwards, they were persecuted. Peter the Great burned their settlements. The Tsars exiled them to Siberia in waves. They learned to disappear into the forest before the soldiers arrived. By the 20th century, isolated Old Believer communities still survived in remote pockets of Siberia. The Lykovs lived in a small village called Lykovo in Tyumen Oblast. Then, in 1936, Stalin's purges arrived. A communist patrol entered the village. Karp Lykov was working outside his house with his brother when the soldiers approached. Without warning, they shot Karp's brother dead in front of him. That single moment ended the Lykov family's life in society. Karp went home. He took his wife Aquilina, his 9-year-old son Savin, and his 2-year-old daughter Natalia. They gathered seeds, a spinning wheel, parts of a loom, basic utensils, and a prayer book. They walked into the taiga and never came back. Over the next several years, they kept moving deeper. Every time a Soviet aircraft passed overhead, they retreated further. They eventually settled near the Yerenot River, in the Abakan Basin, 250 kilometers from the nearest settlement. 2 more children were born in the wilderness, Dmitry in 1940, Agafia in 1944. Neither of the younger 2 had ever seen another human being outside their immediate family. So how did 6 people survive in one of the harshest climates on Earth with no metal, no matches, and no outside support of any kind? The answer is that they recreated, almost from scratch, a way of life that had not existed in Russia for 300 years. The Lykovs survived by living a version of the 17th century inside the 20th, the Stone Age in the 20th century. The Lykov homestead was a single log cabin lit by a window the size of a backpack pocket. The floor was packed dirt mixed with potato peels and pine nut shells. The interior was perpetually dark and smoky from a wood-fired stove. The Bible they had carried into the forest was blackened by smoke, but still readable. The children learned to write in Old Church Slavonic on sheets of birch bark using sharpened sticks dipped in honeysuckle juice. The few iron tools they had brought with them wore out over decades and could not be replaced. They learned to live without them. Fire was struck with flint and preserved with extreme care. Letting the hearth go out in the middle of the Siberian winter would have been a serious crisis. And they had no salt. For 40 years. Karp Lykov later described 40 years without salt to the Russian journalist Vasily Peskov as true torture. The family compensated, barely, through the natural sodium in the wild foods they could harvest. The clothes they had carried in from the village wore out within a few years. So the family grew hemp from the seeds they had brought with them, harvested the fibers, spun thread by hand on the spinning wheel they had carried into the forest, and wove rough cloth on the partial loom they had managed to reassemble. Their shoes were made of birch bark, woven by hand and tied with hemp cord. Their food was whatever the short Siberian summer would allow them to grow, plus whatever the forest would surrender. They cultivated potatoes, rye, and hemp in a tiny clearing they had cleared by hand. They harvested pine nuts. They gathered berries and mushrooms. Frost could arrive in June and destroy the entire growing season. The hunter of the family was Dmitry, the son born into the wilderness in 1940. Dmitry became one of the most extraordinary documented hunters in the modern history of Siberia. He had no firearms. He dug pit traps. He chased animals across the mountains on foot until they collapsed from exhaustion. According to the geologists who later met him, he could travel barefoot through Siberian snow and sleep outside in conditions that would have killed any modern person within hours. He sometimes returned to the cabin carrying an entire elk across kilometers of frozen taiga. The system worked for 25 years. It did not work in 1961. In June of 1961, an unseasonal frost destroyed the Lykov family's crops in a single night. The famine that followed almost killed all of them, and it forced Akulina Lykova to make a choice that no mother should ever have to make. The snow in June. The Siberian summer is short. The Lykov family had 3 full months at most in which their crops could grow. In June 1961, snow fell. Late frost killed the entire potato crop in the ground. The rye froze in the stalk. The vegetables in the small kitchen garden died overnight. The grain harvest that fed them through every Siberian winter was gone. They entered famine. For the next several months, the family ate everything they could find. Pine bark stripped from trees and boiled into a thin gruel, rowan berry leaves, roots dug from the half-frozen earth, and eventually, when nothing else was left, they ate their own birch bark shoes, soaked in water and boiled until they could be swallowed. It was not enough. There were 6 mouths and almost no food. Akulina Lykova made a decision. She stopped eating. Across the famine of 1961, Akulina gave her portion of every meal to her children. She gave them her share of the pine nuts. She gave them her share of the bark gruel. She gave them her share of the boiled shoes. She watched them survive because she chose to disappear. She died of starvation that year. Karp Lykov was now a widower in the middle of nowhere, raising 4 children who had never been seen by another human being. They buried Akulina on the mountain. They held an old believer funeral in the language of 17th century Russia. And they kept going. But Akulina's sacrifice alone was not enough to save them. So how did the rest of the family survive the year after the famine? The answer is a story so small in its details and so enormous in its consequences that it became the symbol most people remember from the entire Lykov family ordeal. It started with a single grain of rye on the floor of the cabin. 18 grains of hope. After the frost destroyed the rye crop, the family searched the floor of the cabin for any seed they could find. They found 1 grain. A single grain of rye that had fallen out of a sack and been overlooked. 1. The entire future of their food supply was now in their hands. They built a small fenced enclosure around it. They guarded it day and night against birds, mice, and squirrels. The grain germinated. It grew. The single rye plant produced 18 grains. The family kept all 18. They planted them the next spring. The 18 grains produced enough rye for a small partial harvest. They kept all of that. They planted it the spring after that. Slowly, year by year, the rye crop rebuilt itself from a single fallen seed. According to Vasily Peskov, who later documented the family in the Komsomolskaya Pravda series and the 1994 book Lost in the Taiga, the Lykovs held a council every year afterwards to decide whether to eat the rye harvest or preserve it as seed for the next season. Every year, they chose to plant. The 18 grains became hundreds. The hundreds became thousands. By the late 1970s, the Lykov family was once again growing enough rye to feed themselves through Siberian winter. For 17 more years after the famine, nobody else on Earth knew the family existed. That changed on a single afternoon in the summer of 1978, when a helicopter pilot scouting iron ore deposits saw something through his windscreen that did not belong. Ghosts in the garden. The geologist who led the team that found the Lykov family was a woman named Galina Pizmanskaya. The helicopter pilot had radioed her base with the sighting of a garden in the wilderness. Her team set up a base camp 10 miles from the site. Pizmenskaya selected a fine day, packed gifts in her rucksack, and quietly checked the pistol holstered at her side. In the taiga, she later told Peskov, "It is less dangerous to run across a wild animal than a stranger." The geologists hiked up the mountainside. An old man in patched sacking came out of the cabin to meet them. He looked, as one of the team later said, like a vision from the previous century. Inside the cabin, 2 women were weeping with terror. One of them was praying aloud. "This is for our sins, our sins." The other had sunk to the floor behind a wooden post, her wide eyes fixed on the strangers in the doorway. The geologists offered food. The family refused. "We are not allowed that," Karp said. The geologists asked if the family had ever eaten bread. Karp answered, "I have, but they have not. They have never seen it." Dmitry and Agafia were 38 and 34 years old at that moment. They had spent their entire lives inside a forest that ended at the edges of a single clearing. They had never seen wheels, horses, glass, or another human face that was not a member of their own family. Cellophane stunned Karp. He held it up to the light and said repeatedly, "Lord, what have they thought up? It is glass, but it crumples." The family had been aware of unusual lights moving across the night sky since the 1950s. Karp had developed his own theory. "People have thought up something," he said, "and are sending out fires that are very like stars." The geologists explained the concept of artificial satellites. Karp accepted it. They told him about the moon landing of 1969. He refused to believe it. The Lykov family had outlasted Stalin. They had outlasted World War II without ever knowing it had happened. They were about to discover that the modern world was more dangerous than the wilderness had ever been. Within 3 years of the geologist's first visit, 3 of the 4 Lykov children were dead. The collision between 42 years of isolation and the microbes of modern civilization produced one of the most quietly devastating contact tragedies of the 20th century. The world is more dangerous than the wild. In the autumn of 1981, Savan Lykov died. He was around 54. A few months later, his sister Natalia died. She was 47. Then their brother Dmitry, the great hunter, died at the age of 41. 3 Lykov children, all within a single year. All within 3 years of meeting the outside world for the first time. Savan and Natalia likely died of kidney failure, the long-term consequence of decades of extreme nutritional deprivation. Their bodies had finally exhausted their capacity to recover. Dmitry died of pneumonia, a simple respiratory infection, the kind a healthy person in any city in the world shakes off in a week. Dmitry had no immunity to it. He had never been exposed to the standard viruses and bacteria that everyone in the broader human population spends their lifetime building defenses against. The geologists, the journalists, the helicopter pilots. Each of them had carried microbes into the cabin that the Lykov family's bodies had no defense against. The man who could survive minus 40 degrees Celsius alone in a forest could not survive a common cold brought in by a stranger. By 1982, only Karp and Agafia were left. Karp Lykov died on February 16, 1988, at the age of about 87. Agafia buried him next to her mother, her sister, and her 2 brothers. She was 43 years old. She had never been more than a few miles from the cabin in her entire life. She was now completely alone. As of 2026, Agafia is 81 years old. She still lives in the same patch of Siberian wilderness her father chose in 1936. She has refused every offer the outside world has made for her to leave. Closing. In 1936, a man watched his brother get shot by a communist patrol on the outskirts of a Siberian village. He went home. He took his wife and his 2 small children. They gathered some seeds, a spinning wheel, parts of a loom, and a Bible. They walked into the taiga, and they did not come back for 42 years. They had 2 more children in the wilderness. They grew rye and potatoes in a clearing they cut by hand. They wove their own clothes from hemp. They made shoes from birch bark. They lived for 40 years without salt. They survived the famine of 1961 because the mother chose to feed her children instead of herself. They survived the year that followed on a single grain of rye that they grew over the next 2 decades into thousands. When the helicopter found them in 1978, they did not know that the country they had fled no longer existed, that the war that had killed millions had been fought without them, or that a piece of cellophane was not glass that wrinkles. Within 3 years of being discovered, 3 of the 4 children were dead. The forest had not killed them. The modern world had. The Lykov family did not survive 42 years in the Siberian wilderness because of luck. They survived because of one man's grief, one woman's sacrifice, one son's impossible endurance, and one single grain of rye that fell on the floor of a log cabin and was not eaten. They survived everything the wilderness threw at them. They did not survive what the modern world brought when it finally came looking for them. If this story stayed with you, like, share, and subscribe. We tell the stories of the people history almost forgot. Drop a comment and tell me what you think. After everything you have heard, would you have walked into that forest in 1936? I read every single one. See you in the next one.